Approximately 1 in 5 people in the world lives in Africa, yet research shows that African knowledge is severely underrepresented in academic libraries.
So you might have seen some research I've done that says there's 4% African content in digital spaces. And yet the population of Africa is between 17 and 20% of the world. And that seems incongruent and not right for me. The work of increasing the African content in digital spaces is a long-term work, but it is precious work, it is important work.
Africa Commons is a collaborative project to preserve and disseminate Africa's endangered cultural heritage.
The first module of Africa Commons preserves and disseminates already digitized collections.
Africa Commons has become the world's largest index of African digital archival materials. It allows scholars and students around the world to cross-search over 400,000 items formerly scattered across the internet. These materials can now be discovered using a single, simple, yet powerful search that links you back to the original site.
So with permission, we actually maintain copies of documents that we index.
Lost collections that are digital, whose links had broken, who were somewhere floating in the internet and could not be discovered because the project closed.
If an item disappears, we're able to provide a backup and a permanent home for these materials. Full access to Africa Commons history and culture is provided for free to all institutions in Africa, as well as to historically Black colleges and universities. And 10% of sales fund future digitization projects.
And it will make African content discoverable in digital spaces. And that will begin to work towards closing that gap.
There's an urgent need to digitize historical and cultural materials in Africa. In the past decade alone, 4 major fires have ravaged libraries in Nigeria, Malawi, and South Africa, destroying irreplaceable collections. One of our first digitization projects is a collection called Black South African Magazines. It includes 50,000 pages of extremely rare magazines, including the historically significant Drum, as well as the first women's magazines written by and for Black African women.
The magazines are so fragile and they exist in just a few physical locations, so it's incredibly exciting that they're being digitized for the first time.
Another collection, Southern African Films and Documentaries, contains more than 100 films, including unedited interviews with major figures, raw footage of historic events, newsreels, propaganda, and the first feature films telling Black African stories.
Africa Commons is created in partnership with an advisory board chaired by Dr. Bouglet, as well as 5 distinguished African librarians. We're so grateful to have the assistance of this advisory board to help ensure that we keep this project relevant for Africa and its citizens. To date, over 50,000 pages have been sourced and digitized in Africa, with another 100,000 pages planned for this year. Over 140 institutions worldwide and their patrons have been granted either free or paid access to Africa Commons, and the number is steadily growing.
I'm really passionate about decolonizing knowledge. It's a very simple thing to do. Make other voices heard in the knowledge spaces and listen to those other voices, and you'll be decolonizing the knowledge spaces. Africa Commons is part of the work of building this cathedral and a crucial part.